Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Roofing Contractor Walls and Ceilings Legal Insights video. I'm RC Editor-in-Chief Art Eisner, and as always, I'm glad to be joined today by Trent Cotney of Adams and Reese. Trent, I am glad you're here to walk us through some of the biggest issues facing the roofing and construction industries, legal or otherwise. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Art. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, certainly no shortage of news, but at the top of the news are all the changes we've already seen in the early days of the new Trump administration. First off, just kind of give me your impression of some of those first moves that you saw, and what is resonating within our industries.
Yeah, absolutely. So this go around, the Trump administration has had months upon months to prepare for this. They were, working on the concepts that ultimately became these executive orders even prior to him winning the election. So part of the strategy in releasing a lot of the executive orders and other things that have come out here recently is to overwhelm the opposition. Oftentimes if you put out one at a time, it's a lot easier to legally challenge that. But now you've got so many hitting at once, you've only got so many resources, so you have to kind of pick and choose, and it's done intentionally. The things that came out are sweeping. I mean, there are dozens upon dozens, and I'll just hit some of the highlights. He put a freeze on federal hiring except for key safety, security, enforcement stuff that helps further his agenda on immigration, things of that nature. The other thing that's going to be good for contractors is that he put a freeze on, or a hold on any new regulation that is going to be coming out. So to the extent that it hasn't already come out, there's a hold on that, at least until such time as his department heads have an opportunity to look at those rules. So example of that would be the OSHA heat injury and illness standard. So, no new regulations for a while. And the existing ones are on hold, at least until such time as the departments can get, more solidified. The other things that I thought were interesting was obviously the vast number of executive orders that dealt with immigration. And I'm just going to rattle off a few of the things that, I thought were interesting. One of the biggest ways that a lot of the migrants come into the U.S. is they come in seeking asylum, or they come in through some kind of refugee administrative program or admissions program. He barred both of those. So for people entering on the southern border, there's no longer asylum, and there's no longer access to the refugee admissions program. The other thing that was really interesting, Art, is that he declared the crossings in the U.S.-Mexico border a national emergency. And that's important because what that does is it frees up the red tape. It allows President Trump to, obtain federal funding to move quickly to construct the border wall and obtain other things without congressional approval. So it is anytime you say national emergency, it gives you the opportunity to really move a little bit quicker. Now, as we go through these things, recognize that they're going to be challenged, right? Some of these will definitely be challenged. They may get stuck in court for a while, but sweeping reforms. Another interesting thing is there was some suggestion of designating cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. That has another impact on immigration and anyone affiliated with that. So you may have nothing to do with cartel activity, but if you've got a family member that is, and you're flagged, then that could potentially have ramifications beyond just immigration. He terminated all DEI programs across every federal government agency. So no more DEI. Removed a lot of the protections that we had seen, come from the Biden administration, based on gender or other things that were put forth. The other thing that I think is going to be interesting is his trade policies. And he's mentioned in the past the use of tariffs and other things, but he's specifically focusing on Mexico, Canada, and China. He's looking to, even the playing field, and he's using tariffs as a basis to negotiate what is really better business deals, right? He suggested the implementation of an external revenue service to actually collect these tariffs and duties and other things that might be owed, as a result of his orders and other, congressional approvals that come out. On the energy front, this I also thought was very interesting. He declared a national energy emergency. So again, anytime you see national emergency, that allows him to take extraordinary powers without, going through the normal process of navigating environmental rules or, typical permitting. You can expedite things like mining and other stuff that might be needed in order to accelerate that. He's going to reverse a lot of the things that Biden did with regard to incentives on renewable energy through the infrastructure act that came out not too long ago, as well as push more of the oil and gas reserves that we have here, including expanding offshore drilling and working on that large pipeline in Alaska. And if that wasn't enough, it's everything from TikTok to renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America to, withdrawing from the World Health Organization. I mean, every single thing that he was doing was a press story in and of itself. It was, there was a lot of spectacle there, but just digesting the gravitas of all these different things is a huge undertaking. And, I'm sure we'll be talking about it, to come many times.
Right.
So.
Right. So many issues right there. But I think there are two to really key on that I'm curious about for the roofing industry and construction trades are, first off, you mentioned the energy policy and those changes. Have you started to see or any reaction from construction suppliers about what that means and how much innovation and investment they've put into pro-environmental changes to their products? What does it mean for them?
Yeah, it has been interesting. We have been in communication with distribution and certain manufacturers. Their primary concerns have been tariff related, and it's interesting to note that even if there are tariffs, for example, he's suggested that there might be a 10 to 20% tariff on all imports. That exemptions and waivers are freely granted. They usually require some level of lobbying. It's not as straightforward as saying, "Hey, give me an exemption." But they have been granted in the past. So, part of what we've been navigating is working on those types of things. I will tell you, to answer your question directly, yeah, to the extent that you put all your eggs in the renewable energy basket, you might want to reconsider. So, is it a good idea to still have, a solar unit? Absolutely. There's always going to be a need for that. There's always going to be tax incentives that might not be on the federal, but it could be on the state or local, or it could be, otherwise. So it doesn't disappear. And the one thing that I want to hit home to everyone is that just because the federal government has gotten rid of something, there's generally a state government can be more restrictive, just not less restrictive than the federal government. So a great example of this, Art, is, OSHA, let's say, eliminates a lot of the enforcement or other stuff through the Department of Labor. Cal OSHA state plan, they can continue business as usual and even get more aggressive if they want to. So one of the things that you and I are going to have to do, I guess, over the next few months is really see how the dust settles and what does this really mean. Right now, we've got a lot of rhetoric, a lot of, grandiose statements, but I want to see what is the end result of this after all the lawsuits and all the, saber rattling goes away. What are we left with?
Right. Well, and obviously a big impact too on immigration, as you mentioned. You mentioned the stoppage of asylum. Is there any indication, if any of those current workers that are here on asylum visas, would they perhaps be grandfathered in, or are those workers also, subject to some of this change?
So as I understand it, the executive order only barred asylum for people newly arriving at the southern border. So it doesn't necessarily prevent someone seeking asylum through some other means, whether it's our northern border or somewhere else, right? Coming in through an embassy or whatever it might be. But it's just new people arriving. And I think the the goal is to, stop the tide, of migrants that are coming. And you can anticipate that the deportation effort is going to be ramped up once the departments get solidified and it becomes more, business as usual. Contractors out there should definitely, be concerned about I-9 audits and ICE raids. So, even if there isn't a, mass attempt to, eliminate workforce of, construction and agriculture and hospitality or whatever it might be, there will definitely be a pickup in both I-9 audits to make sure that you're compliant, and as well as ICE raids if they believe that, you're employing illegals.
Got it. And that's obviously a big issue and great advice, Trent. Is there another message to contractors out there that might, obviously if this is weighing on them, but just, to stay focused on the work they have ahead?
Yeah, it is. I was watching, the inauguration and the executive orders as they were coming out, because I knew I'd have to be able to speak about them. And I turned to my wife and I just said, "This is crazy. This amount of change. Clearly, the Trump administration is a change agent, and anytime you have this kind of transformative change, it causes ripples and it causes waves, right? And it's I can name a few times where I've experienced this, where there's definitely good things that will happen, but there could be some unintended consequences, right? And I think we as an industry just keep our heads down and keep going, until I know what all of this means, until I actually see, what is this, how does this executive order translate to a contractor's day to day? Until I know that, then I wouldn't do a lot of hand wringing at this point. I'd recognize that we may have increased labor rates. We may have increased material prices because of tariffs. Possibility. So account for that in your contracts, account for that in your bidding, recognize that, 6 months from now, we'll have a much better understanding of what this looks like.
Got it. Thanks, Trent, for your insight today and all you do for the roofing and construction industries. Where can people find out more?
Sure, they can email me at trent.cotney@arlaw.com or anywhere social at Trent Cotney.
And before you head there, be sure to sign up for our new free e-magazine and e-newsletters on roofingcontractor.com so you can stay up with the latest news and information impacting the industry. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Art.